Welcome to Swimming with Allocators,
the VC podcast from the LP perspective,
with your hosts, Alexa Benz
and Ernest Sweat. You ready? Let's dive in. Welcome to Swimming with Allocators. This is a DDQ episode featuring myself, Alexa Benz, and my co-host, Ernest Sweat.
Glad to be here. Don't know why I said that. Always here.
Always here. This is a little play on the due diligence questionnaire. We discuss, debate, and then answer questions from the audience. First topic in the discussion section, there's a crazy number. 3,000 applications come in for each cohort at VC Labs, which is offering like free, basically GP accelerator type cohorts, as well as LP courses too. 3,000. So I am curious to discuss that with you.
Yeah, when you shared this with me, I was pretty surprised at seeing kind of the numbers. I don't know how long VC Lab has been around, but in the peak of 2020 and 2021, where there's so many new types of emerging managers coming to market, it seems like this number of applications is further proof that despite how choppy fundraising is, how hard it is being an emerging manager, especially in venture capital, let alone any other asset class, there's still a lot of interest. Mm-hmm. And kudos to them being able to build a strong program that garners a lot of interest. I get a lot of emails from them a lot on different offerings that they're bringing. So yeah, it seems like it's a great thing. The question I always have with these are like, will it have the staying power?
Yeah. No, it is a funnel, I believe, for their then software that helps you like manage your fund and fundraising process and things like that. And for friends that have gone through it, the feedback I've heard is they do like push people out pretty hard. They're saying like, you commit. If you're actually going to do this, really do it. And I think that's actually a very helpful. Like if you're listening to this podcast and you have been mulling on whether you should or shouldn't launch a fund, maybe that is good to have that pressure. It's like, taking a book writing class. If you've always had a book in mind that you wanted to write, it just like holds you accountable and holds you honest. So that otherwise, if it turns out like now isn't the time, or in fact you realize there are some other things that you'd rather do with your life, you can move on. And it sounds like a helpful.
This, I don't know, for some reason it made me think of like two different stories. One more recent, I was speaking with an LP for I think a pre-recording or pre-interview conversation. And he came from the large private equity world, and so he still had a lot of friends in it. And they were asking him, "Hey, we're thinking about jumping into venture and starting our own VC firms. What advice do you have?" And so he just like gave them all these stats on how hard it is, why they shouldn't do it, how long it would take. And so he was like, "You probably shouldn't do it." And then he said, they were like, "So how?" He was like, "If you come back to me after me saying all this, then I know you're ready to be a venture capitalist." And so that's very similar to like one of the first times. Well, I think this was probably 2014, and I got connected through a friend to Rich Kirby, who's now the managing partner of Field Ventures. And at the time, he was at another firm. And I asked him, I was like, "Man, I really want to get into venture full time." And he was like, "Be a founder." Mm-hmm. And at first, I was like extremely pissed about that answer. It's like, I didn't come to you for that. But I get it now. So many VCs, so many, especially LPs, have people. This is an interesting job from the outside perspective. Mm-hmm. And but it takes a lot to actually be good at this and sustainable, and have a sustainable career in this path. And so people see people fly by night all the time of how much they want to be in this, but actually the commitment and self-belief is necessary to even get to a point of being able to raise a fund. So
So why do like VCs not or accelerators of startups not drill the same impossible dream? You know, like we don't harp on this is probably going to go to zero because we need all 30 companies in our portfolio to think they are the winner. And so like you're not as honest.
Um, that's a great point. Well, I think the assumption is if you're starting a company, you already know that there's more there's a higher likelihood that you could start a Michelin star restaurant than actually have a large exit. I'm
Yeah.
probably being facetious. Somebody's going to come back to me and show the data. Actually, the data is pretty convincing that it's the other way around. Well, God bless you. But I think, yeah, that's the assumption. And so you want to come in, and what you're doing actually when doing diligence is pushing buttons to see, all right, how much do they believe this? Do they know more than I do? They should. Have they thought about every problem or every key problem? What do they think is something that they want to solve? And I think the best founders have this uncanny ability to show the self confidence, but also
Yeah.
have a self awareness of like where they, fall short.
Yep. I am quite curious. Failure rate of startups versus failure rate of funds. And I'll check that out.
Well, yeah. And I think it also determines what's your definition of a fund. Is it someone saying they're going to raise a fund? Is it somebody who, raises at least $1 and has, LPA
Yeah.
documents? Yeah, that could look different too. Or yeah, that'd be really interesting data. And then, some people just disappear like the third child in Family Matters and never show up again. So you never know what happens.
Uh,
Rest in peace, Judy.
I appreciate that. Another topic that I was discussing offline with an LP that I thought would be interesting to get your take on is when you're taking a pitch, would you prefer to listen to the deck or just like sit down and have a conversation? And I realized I was like, oh, I have taken so many more startup pitches that I really do appreciate following the deck because I'm like, you only have 30 minutes. Let's make sure that we hit, for the most part, the required information. Because if you're sort of chatting, you sometimes leave off actually some like meaningful details
Yeah.
versus there's like really nothing in a deck for a GP. So why talk through it? Like all the details are probably more or less the same.
Yeah, because we all like, yeah. It's one of my friends, he's a GP, and he said sheep all think they look different to sheep, but like to everybody else, they look the same, right? Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think for me on the side of the table as a VC talking to a founder, I I can go either way because some people are such great storytellers that they're going to say very interesting things that are really relevant to what they're building and actually what motivates them
Yeah.
and it's not on the deck. And so I always say, whatever makes you more comfortable, like I'm fine with that. And then I can look at the deck later. For GPs, pitching to LPs, I think you have to it has to be a conversation because this is a long-term relationship, right? It's not apples to apples. It's the experience with VCs and founders. And so I think you telling them why you're doing this, why you are differentiated,
Totally.
or maybe how you're not
Yeah.
differentiated, you know?
The differentiation is you. Like that is literally the only unique piece of the pitch. Versus startup pitch, you like truly do probably learn something from each pitch that you take. Like even
Yeah.
if you're extremely familiar with the problem that they're addressing, their solution includes some unique, you're gonna there's some detail in there that you're gonna learn something. Okay, interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
Boris, I think Boris, after helping, what did he do? He said he had like slots for a couple LP positions last year, and he
Yeah.
said his main takeaway was like your deck does not matter.
It doesn't. Those have been, I wouldn't even say surprising, but over our now 80 conversations, it has consistently been like, you are the differentiation. It's really hard to systematically create the luck that's necessary to be good at this. So you just have to be chasing for it and know what game that you're playing, whether you're a momentum player, which is mostly kind of like established brand name funds, or a conviction player, newer funds and smaller funds. And then the track record is not. It's like a top two, top three, top four thing. Not always. It's never top one.
Totally. Well, Mason Lender just shared with you on a mini episode some really cool data that was on. We'll share this with everybody if you haven't seen that episode yet. He's the CEO of Vantager, and they surveyed their clients, which are LPs, on what are the key elements that they are looking for when considering an LP investment. And it was surprising. It was surprising to me. I think the lowest one was co-investment.
Yeah.
And I've been sort of like chewing on that because, do LPs really want access to SPVs, or what
I
was your
think.
interpretation of that data?
Yeah. My interpretation is that, like most data, it depends. But
Right.
my assumption is, I think we're at a crossroads where LPs are trying to determine what's the right alternative to the alternative of fund investing. Is it doing more co-investing? Is it doing your own direct investing that just comes through your own pipeline? Or is it secondaries? What's the right path to utilize all the data you have, utilize all the access you have to build the best returns based on certain risk appetite? And so, I think for family offices specifically, that group is, and I've talked to a number of them over the last couple of months. They just feel, hey, we don't want to pay fees, and so we're going to do this ourselves. And the catch 22 there is, even if you're good at it, it's going to become overwhelming, because if you have $1 to spend on that's your whole family office, right? Only about 10 cents is going to venture, right? Yet the amount of time, if you're spending an hour on that dollar, probably roughly 30 minutes is going to be spent on that on that 10 cents, right? If not more time.
Yeah.
And so it's a real crossroads of like, how do we actually find alpha? If you're a family office, is it just doing direct investing? Is it being kind of handheld with some of these co-investment opportunities? But then there's always that kind of like back of your head, like, is there adverse selection here?
Totally.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah, seeing co-investments ranked as sort of the last reason why an LP commits to a GP made me think, okay, maybe everybody is offering co-investments and therefore it's just sort of a wash as opposed to a differentiator. Or somebody has to first have great sourcing, their own great nose, and then the co-investment is valuable. It's almost like they recognize that like the first thing they need to do is identify the top decile GP, and then the co-investments will follow.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing I believe you heard from an LP is if they only have one GP slot, right? We haven't seen as much liquidity. So this, picking, your next fund investment that's net new, high barrier. And an LP told you have to have insane connections and returns to date. What are your thoughts on that? Is that fair? Is that the right approach?
Yeah, I thought that was worth sharing on the podcast because for the most part, people are not open who come on the show about how many slots they have left. And and like pretty good isn't good enough in terms of like returns to date. You are one out of, and we understand this math because that's how we feel when we're picking individual portfolio companies too, right? But I think part of the issue is you don't get feedback. I've been thinking a little bit about the difference about like why people pass on deals versus why they pass on funds. And why you pass on a deal can be something that is not arbitrary. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I wish we had met sooner. At this valuation, it doesn't make our fund math work. Or, man, you are such an expert on this space. We've invested in this space once before and it burned us. And I just won't be able to get my partners excited about this. It's got nothing to do with you. Those things you can't argue versus like why you're passing on a fund is really a little bit more arbitrary. It's that we think somebody else is going to make us more money. And you wouldn't be doing this, hopefully, if you're a GP who doesn't think you're going to be insanely good. And so, like, you never get the feedback that, like, you're middle of the road or, like, there's things about you that are pretty generic. And for somebody who like this guy who's seeing lots of deals, it's like a pretty easy pass on people who are really exceptional because he can wait for just like like just a unicorn equivalent.
Yeah, part of me, I think it's hearing so many LP perspectives. I think you also need to think about two things. One, kind of doing an audit of your entire portfolio with respect to venture and growth equity. And maybe your entire audit of your entire, all the asset classes, if you do all the different privates and publics, and seeing kind of, where you underweight, and then moving into the venture part of the book and see, are you getting, market beta? Are you getting that access? And if you are, maybe you should think very highly about like, all right, what type of firm could possibly get me venture alpha? Because that's the whole point. And I'm not so sure always LPs or even other GPs have a clear understanding on like what insane connections means today. Right. And now we're moving to the debate section. This is where one of us will bring up a topic and a question that we've been thinking about. We'll lightly say our point of view and then ask our co-hosts their point of view and have a healthy debate. So all these things typically have come from conversations we've either had on the podcast or having around the podcast when talking to those in the community. So I'll start it off. So I've been thinking recently about how LPs diligence VC firms, both old and new. And something I've become acutely aware of is every new fund announcement is not an article, but it is a well-produced video and commercial of that company. So-and-so has raised a Series A of $20 million, and we led the round, and I'm here with Founder Y. Founder Y, you're awesome. Why did you pick us? You're awesome. Tell us about what's going on. And so that's happening all the time. It made me really think, Is this a new diligence signal for LPs? Do LPs trust GPs who do this? Is this becomes table stakes? And then it also made me
Totally.
think about, has it changed the construction of a VC firm?
Hmm.
So this idea of like, what is a full stack VC firm? It has
Yeah,
investors.
totally.
It has actually a fund manager, which is a different than it can be an investor, but somebody who's actually running a fund. We used to have platform people, talent people. Now, do you need a marketer, social media, PR presence?
Yes. I love this topic. My career before investing full time was as marketer. And it is like feed the beast. You have your Instagram, like it's just gotta, it's like your newsletters go out regularly and you need to have content. And it is kind of content for content's sake is the worst example of this. And honestly, it's like one of the reasons why I was like, I don't know that I want to be a marketer. This is the point of this should not just be like a month has passed, so we need to do it again. If I think what LPs hopefully see and can like assess is does the extra effort that they're putting into this content somehow drive meaningful results for them? So I work with a couple of GPs just informally on their own marketing techniques. And you have to start with what are your goals? Like, why are you doing this? And if it's to get in front of more LPs or if it's to increase the quality of your sourcing pipeline, et cetera, then like, then you sort of back into what the right actual marketing platforms and content is for your goals. So, like, I love if it's about just like having founders actually trust you and like think of you as somebody who is on their team, like a super informal hang at your home once a month where everybody is getting to actually know you and you sees all the people who respect you and not some sort of flashy sit down dinner, I think is way more appropriate, right? So you can design your marketing strategy to fit. I think what has happened because of Andreessen is that everybody thinks in order to be considered for $1 billion fund investments, they need to have a podcast and that they need to have regular content and things like that. And that's a little bit of like keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah. Um, I, I do think what's underlining here is people understand more and more that if you can control your narrative
Mm-hmm.
as best as you can, that is powerful. And companies are realizing that they need to do that even at an early stage, to be able to set the tone, because their ideal customer profile might change, or
Mm-hmm.
preferences with their customers might change. Or I can't remember the exact company, but they raised a new round and switched the market that they were going after.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just they switched, they actually had made significant revenue in the
Yeah.
new market. And
Yeah.
so that's going to happen more and more from a company like going from just real estate to healthcare, and you being able to control your narrative to speak why you're doing this is better suited in your hands than giving it to a journalist that might not, that might be looking to like get clicks based on who invests in all that stuff or how
Totally.
much it is. So I think there is something there, but again, it all comes back to is how genuine is it to you
Mm-hmm.
and who you are, and how does it fit what you are doing.
Yeah, and also maybe there's a lot more room for things like thought leadership very early on. Like if you're funding pre-seed, you need a lot of thought leadership because you're making bigger bets. But if you're funding like Series D and beyond, that's a known universe. Like you're just like, well, of the best companies, we will try to get the We will try to lead them. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you think why. But I think the why is no matter what stage, and this comes from what's going to be one of my picks to answer for one of our community questions. But I heard one investor speak that everybody's trying to be a flagship in whatever stage that they are, because you want to just be, you want to have a brand where, and I read an LP say, write this, but you want to be able to fish where they're coming upstream to you, right? But up until that point, you're just hunting. You're just trying to find wherever you can to find a great catch. Some people just have a house on the river and can and take advantage of it. And so
I love that
that's what
metaphor.
that's what you want to be. Is somebody who's like,
Just sit on your
yeah,
back deck and
you still got
fish.
to work. You still got to work because you might catch it and be like, I don't really like this
Yeah.
one, and throw it back. It means you can lose a lot of great deals, but you at least want to be known as someone that these great catches go to.
You want to be a fisherman, not a hunter.
Yeah, yeah.
Another topic I would love to debate with you. Um, do smaller LPs even have a path to real diversification, or is this a insider's game?
What's your view on it first?
Well, I think certainly like the fund of funds who have come on the show will tell us like unless you can index and participate in every vintage, you shouldn't be LPing. And there's thousands of new GPs, so you need to meet with them all in order to make sure you're seeing the creme de la creme. Um, I think this is about self awareness. Smaller LPs who are average, this absolutely need diversification. And small LPs who are college roommates with, I don't know, Sam Altman don't need that. So I think listening to a show like ours is huge for recognizing like how likely is it that you are average and therefore you need to be indexing. I think the rule of thumb is like 6 to 10 investments over 3 to 5 years as an LP. Versus if you only make one bet, is there a chance that you are betting on one of these? Like if you're just trusting because your college roommate called you up and said, I'm putting money into this, you'd put money into, who's the guy who's calling you, I think is what matters.
Yeah, it's about what if you realize what access you have and what you don't. And so yeah, I think we have a lot of fund to funds on, and I'm fund to fund biased. I think people should, whether they're foundations or small endowments or family offices, I think they should have a outsourced CIO or fund to fund that they work with, particularly in this crazy asset class that we're in. And so I think you can go about it here on your own, but you also have to know the time frame it takes to actually get good at it. I always bring up this quote that one of my bosses told me in the past was, John Doerr is rumored to be saying that like you don't know the venture business until you've crashed a 747. And so where you're getting at is like you're going to lose money in this, but as if you're losing money and learning and not giving. So many people give up after trying, especially in other parts of the country that aren't on the coast or one of the, first or second tier tech hubs.
Yeah. Does then the like AI concentration make this even harder? Like we've moved from like venture as an asset class where there's like huge divergence of results, and then you like layer on that what AI is doing to this industry.
You mean in like the operations, or you mean in the actual investments?
In
Like
the
they're all going.
valuations and that. Yeah.
Well, I think again, like they're still like contrary to popular belief, they're still consumer and that are non AI companies. You have B2B tech that's non AI. I think that's a moment where we're just like when we used to have mobile VCs, mobile investors. We used to have just cloud investors, and I
Mm-hmm.
think as things become more ubiquitous and the AI stack, it just becomes our modern tech stack. It'll just be where technology is. Where I thought you were going is like, some family offices have told me their issue with fund of funds is the fact that you don't get any diversification because the firms that they're investing in are all doing party rounds in the same companies. And so if we're all in the same AI company, am I really getting the diversification that I might as well just pick the funds that I want,
Mm-hmm.
that are doing different things. And so I think that's a different question, a different thought. It's interesting. I don't know if it's completely right, but as long as we have a healthy amount of non-consensus but right bets that end up being right, I think it'll all even out. So next, we have questions from our community of those that are interested in venture, allocators, emerging managers, VCs, and everything in between. So our first question was from the community. It says, I have a pretty good track record, brag. It's a 6X, and I invest in AI. What a surprise. How do I actually differentiate?
This was a fun conversation to have with a friend, um, because we kind of giggled for a little bit, and I was like, on who you know, who's an LP. That is how I think you can differentiate. So rather than spending too much of your time like trying to change your track record or come up with a sneaky new thesis, um, putting some effort into like hacking these people who really believe in you. I I do feel like that is a huge differentiator is like your LP network.
I think I feel like we're a broken record, but it's about developing relationships with individuals. Um, if one fund is going to be around for 10, 12, 15 years, it should be a little bit more than just like, hey, I have a 6X and it's going to happen every time. First of all, I don't think a lot of people will believe that. Um, but secondly, so many times when it comes to like narrative, and this is going to be a bad reference, but hopefully people will get it. But so many times when it comes to like when you're telling a story or self belief, I always think of the Seinfeld scene where George is trying to teach Jerry how to lie. And he's like, Jerry thinks he's got it. As Jerry leaves the restaurant, George is like, remember, Jerry, it's not a lie if you believe it. And so, like, so many things is like, if you don't even believe that you're differentiated or feel that passionate about your story, no one else will. And so I think it comes from there, really digging down and like, what am I doing to help me win this? And then another thing that might help you can't come up with ideas, ask the people who helped you get that 6X, right? Like those
Yeah.
founders and say, hey, what was it about me that you wanted to? Some might be just like, hey, man, I thought you were a good hang. Or some might say, hey, you asked a lot better questions. Or you really, when you said you were
Mm-hmm.
hands on, you were actually hands on.
Mm-hmm. No, okay, but like the devil's advocate side of this is like you really are just like taking money from one hand and putting it in another. Like part of the job is there's a basics to the job, which is I don't know. maybe like the realists who are fundraising are like, okay, this is a little bit of a like narrative.
I don't think many realists, um, you kind of have to be a realistic optimist, right?
Okay. Yeah, fair.
You can't, yeah, you have to, and to do this well, as I think you even mentioned, you need to be top decile. If you don't believe you have a shot at being top decile, you should not do this.
Yeah, fair.
Because yes, it's giving, taking it's taking, because the people who are giving you money are taking money from one place and giving you money. You need to believe that you have a shot to take their money, which is
Yes.
10 to 25% of their entire book, and they can put it in T-bills if they want something guaranteed. They want something that has high return versus the risk.
Yes. All right. Well, lovely transition to our other question that we got asked on social. Ernest, are you starting a fund? And if so, when?
Yeah, the plan is to. But for me, and I think if you look on my socials, everybody sees that, the idea is for the name is Stresswood. But I want to be, it's kind of a good transition, be authentically me in how I do it. And I see
Cool.
that there's an opportunity to build a strong team, build relationships, and build communities around the firm before actually launching it, right? And so you're still building a plane while, flying it, but it's not necessarily like you're taking all the passengers at the same time, right? And so, the target is still mid 2027 to launch, but doing great work on Swim with Allocators, have some other things in the pipeline as well, and staying active in the market.
What's the focus of Stresswood?
So Trisha will be this is where people come in, because everything I said before, people will be like, well, that sounds pretty generic. But no, I think there's an opportunity for a generalist Series A fund with individuals of strong brand who have dedicated at least a decade of their career focused on a certain industry or product type. So for me, over my 11 years in venture, I've always done a lot of vertical software and applied AI. So that's what I'll be doing. But my colleagues will be doing things in their focuses of consumer, healthcare, infrastructure, commerce, marketplaces. And so we believe that there's an opportunity, especially at that Series A round, where somebody can be just focused on that and really be a bridge for customers, advisors that can lead them to exponential growth. Cool. And
Exciting. Very
thank you.
exciting.
Thank you. And another question we got was, and we get this repeatedly, is, in between our, we produce another DDQ every 10-ish, 10, 12-ish when we're not traveling episodes. A question we get is, what lessons have we learned over these last 11 episodes? And if you had to pick one must-listen episode, which would it be?
This is confusing because there's what we've published and there's what we've recorded. So
It's
I'm having to
what we
publish.
published.
Exactly.
What they would have heard.
Totally. I'm like, what have you all
So
heard yet?
so that's probably what is that?
I
Episode 61 to 71.
totally. I think Wendy Lee is 67. I would call that one out because it feels very unique to me what they are building, and I really appreciated the logic of it. I don't know, Ernest, if that would have been yours if I stole your thunder.
No, no. Well, I love Wendy, and she extremely thoughtful person, and I love the fact that her bringing kind of the endowment approach to like democratizing that to like families and individuals and smaller endowments that can't do that. I'm rooting for them. I want them to be extremely successful. But when looking at all the episodes that we've done since our last DDQ, oh my God, there's like, you got Claire, who's just like a rock star, and the extreme amount of humility and brilliance, and someone who can just tackle a lot of things. And in that episode, it really brings out how having a non-traditional background, and not when you say non-traditional, because I feel like that's overused, but taking your own aspects as like someone who's been in art and then been thrown in finance and taking all those experiences to build in a family office, super cool. I think that all the things that that Brian had experienced in the early venture days of the 80s, and saying no to Kleiner Perkins, and his somewhat bearish view on venture, and what you need to consider. I thought that was fascinating and sobering and healthy for our community. But like, and then lastly, I'd probably say Jason on episode 70, who, even in his name being extremely intentional. This is somebody who's very successful and sees that, oh, I want to create something that can be that's really needed in the market when it comes to GP seeding.
And final question from the audience: what are some LP GP related content outside of Swimming with Allocators that you would recommend, articles, etc.?
Yeah, my pick for this DDQ would be a pretty famous podcast, 20VC with Harry Stebbins. I said Harry Styles. And that would be that'd be an interesting episode. But this episode, I don't even know the number of it, but it's Miles from Carnegie Mellon's endowment. And he leads their, private equity and venture capital book. I've had the pleasure of speaking to Miles before, and had over last summer, probably like a 40-minute conversation. Super brilliant guy, super down to earth, and has strong opinions. I would suggest you check this out to, one, hear about his story, which is powerful. He didn't even get it to like his high level college football playing days. But they talk about spinouts. They talk about the endowment model and the headwinds that those organizations are facing, and why they focus on partner dynamics so much in their diligence and back channeling. So everybody should check that out. It came out 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks, a month ago now.
Okay, it's on my list now. And my favorite listen is always Matt Levine's podcast. He has famously had this long-running Bloomberg sort of like witty financial column, and his podcast, he's just as awesome, and it's fun to hear like the voice when you're actually listening to him, which is, you get a little bit of that. I don't know. You're like, oh, it doesn't take him long to write these articles at all. Like, this is him, because he's riffing so well. But the reason I appreciate it is because at any given time, you're looking to just sort of like bond with LPs on what's going on in their lives. And I think like there's probably something super interesting that Matt is writing about or speaking about that is just going to make like a fun opener chat. Like he's always got like an interesting, cool take on what's happening in the market. And I don't know. I feel smarter for getting to listen to him.
That's awesome. Thanks to all our listeners. Keep following us on LinkedIn and X. And if you have any questions, just DM us on Swimming with Allocators LinkedIn page.
Thank you. See you later, allocator.
After Portfolio Tile, investing with a smile.